It's an interesting day to me, the day sandwiched between Good Friday and Easter, a day that we in the church typically spend a lot of time preparing the church for Easter. So we have the reflection of Good Friday, and we know the joy that will come on Easter. And yet in that day in between, we tend to be here setting up for Easter, even though Easter's not here yet, but we're getting ready for it because we're going to do a service tonight, the vigil, that will take us over from that darkness into the light. But what about Jesus? What did Jesus do on this day? And so that's why, to me, it's always important to have this service, this Holy Saturday service, to take the time to remember that, yes, this was still a day that Jesus laid in the tomb. This was still a day before his resurrection. And that something indeed happened on this day. I think our readings set up quite well what we believe took place on this day. From John's Gospel, we hear that Joseph of Arimathea laid Jesus in the tomb, but no tomb could contain him. The reading from Job sets up a very dire picture, doesn't it? As Job is still talking with God about all the things that have been happening to him. Job loses his patience for sure, but Job never loses his faith. But here he questions his very existence. When mortals die, where do they go? And will they live again? Jesus on this day descends to the depths of hell. Jesus on this day goes to Sheol, that place where Job asks to be hidden and covered. And Jesus opens the gates so that, yes, mortals may live again. What Job says, for there is hope for a tree, if it is cut down, that it will sprout again, and that its shoots will not cease, and that at the scent of water it will bud. It makes me think of what we just heard recently from Jesus, that if a grain of wheat falls in the ground and dies, it will bear much fruit. Peter, too, talks about those, proclaiming the gospel to those who are dead, because they, too, will rise again. Our Lenten study this year focused on a book called The Last Week by Marcus Borg and John Dominic Crossan. And we looked at Christ's final week as it is told in Mark's gospel, but we would also look at how it worked in some of the other gospels as well. And I want to share something they said about this very day, what we call the harrowing of hell, as Jesus descends and opens the gates of hell. Crossan and Borg write this: if the harrowing of hell fits with great difficulty into a narrative sequence, it fits with moving beauty into the poetic language of hymn and chant. 2 examples will suffice. The first is from 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 18 and 19, and chapter 4, verse 6, which we read this morning. 1 Peter is a circular letter written in the name of Peter toward the end of the first century, and the theme of Jesus' descent appears in a short hymn that says this: for Christ also suffered for sins once for all, the righteous for the unrighteous, in order to bring you to God. He was put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which also he went and made a proclamation to the spirits in prison. The proclamation is about the Spirit's liberation from Hades, and the theme is repeated later in 4:6, where the gospel was proclaimed even to the dead, so that though they had been judged in the flesh, as everyone is judged, they might live in the Spirit as God does. That preceding example is controversial as an allusion to the harrowing of hell, but there is no question about this second one. The most magnificent hymnic expression of that corporate resurrection of Jesus and the holy ones of Israel is in the Odes of Solomon, a collection of Christian hymns from the end of the first century. Here is its climactic celebration, in which Christ himself is the speaker. I was not rejected, although I was considered to be so, and I did not perish, although they thought it of me. Sheol saw me and was shattered, and death ejected me, and many with me. I have been vinegar and bitterness to it, and I went down with it as far as the depth. Then the feet and the head it released, because it was not able to endure my face. And I made a congregation of living among his dead, and I spoke with them by living lips, in order that my word may not fail. And those who had died ran toward me, and they cried out and said, Son of God, have pity on us, and deal with us according to your kindness, and bring us out from the chains of darkness, and open for us the door by which we may go forth to you, for we perceive that our death does not approach you. May we also be saved with you, because you are our Savior. Then I heard their voice, and placed their faith in my heart. And I placed my name upon their head, because they are free, and they are mine.